Hello, I'm here with Noah Lovell. He's a web developer at noahlovell.com or .design. He has an extensive background as a freelance developer, and he's a community leader here with Wix. We're going to talk a little bit today about how he got started with Wix and with Velo, and just his background and stuff like that. So, how are you doing, Noah?
Yeah, doing really well, thank you.
Cool.
Busy as always, but doing well.
Awesome. So how long have you been building websites? What's your background, and what was, the impetus to get started with web development? If you can remember the first site that you made, maybe.
Yeah,
What
so
was that
I've
like?
I've always kind of like had a passion for technology. Just like getting my hands stuck in. Like tech is just I love it. And I think about 4 years ago, I was just looking at how to build a free website, stuff like that, and came across Wix. And played around with it then and found it interesting. I was maybe 14 or 15 at the time. And then at the beginning of COVID, I I kind of like stopped building websites. And then at the beginning of COVID, I was like, I need something to do. I've got all this spare time on my hands. So I remembered I had used Wix and jumped back in. So I played around with it for a little while. And then when I left college, I was like, I really need to do something.
Mhm.
Didn't want to get a job, didn't want to go to uni. So I was like, let's turn this into a career. So I've been building for about 4 years, but professionally for the last year, but solidly for the last 2 years.
Cool. Did you start with Velo? I mean, with Wix from the beginning? What was that kind of process like with the earliest sites you were making?
Yeah, so I initially started with I did start with Weebly, but I was just limited with what I could do. It's very much more structured. You don't have the freedom of moving things around a page and that. So when I discovered Wix, I was like, this is pretty awesome. Um, so I was just doing things like 14-year-olds do, like let's just build something. Let's build a little website about me. It never got launched or anything. It was just more for the fun of it at the time. Yeah.
Cool. What were some of the first clients that you worked with, and what kind of sites were you building for them?
So when I started professionally last year, my first client was it was a preschool that rents the church building of the church that I attend, and it was kind of just at the end of kind of like my that time at school, and I was like, I see you've got a Wix website. It's not great. Do you want me to do something with it? And they were like, sure. So that was my first client. And then shortly afterwards, the church that I attend, their subscription for the platform that they were currently on was coming up to the kind of like the end. And I was like, I can get this much cheaper for us. It's going to look better. I can do what I want with it. I know how to use it. So that was my second client, and we transitioned the site. Within about a month, we went from one platform to another completely from the ground up, from scratch.
Cool. So you're building those sites from Wix. Did you encounter issues that sort of required you to learn Velo and learn JavaScript at all?
Yeah, so really interestingly, I was approached by a client. They had an SEO audit done, and they asked me whether I'd be able to implement it. And I went ahead and did that, and they were incredibly pleased with kind of like the service that I had offered. And then they were like, "We're looking for this feature where I can like move a mouse into an image and it will bring up a text box, and I'll move a mouse out and it will close the text box. Do you know how to do that?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's great. I can do that." Um, and then we jumped in kind of like a discovery call, and then they kind of started listing the things that they were after, and they were like, "We want to rebuild this form, um, and we need this functionality on it." And I was like, "Okay." And then they were like, "We want this interactive map that when I click on a pin, it brings up this information on the side about that location. Can we do that?" And I was like, "I've seen it before, and I've got I've got like the exact example." And they were like, "Great, we're going to pay you to do it." And I was like, right, okay.
Hmm.
Um,
Pressure's
so
on.
Yeah, I was kind of thrown in the deep end. I had a few contacts with like other Velo developers. So I kind of like messaged them and was like, yo, how do I do this? Said, I read loads of articles and that said kind of like my journey with with Velo was chuck you straight in the deep end with that. Yeah.
Cool. So you had no programming experience beforehand, right? This was your first programming language, JavaScript?
Absolutely none. I had done maybe, written 5 or 6 lines in an IT lesson in school, printing hello world on a HTML kind of like thing.
Yeah,
But this was the first project. Yeah.
that's super cool. So you were using like the forum, and what other resources were you using to learn?
Yeah. So the Velo forum, that was kind of like the first place. And then I kind of like was just on YouTube, like, how do I do this? Let's look for this tutorial. And I'm now subscribed to like maybe 8 or 9 or 10 different channels that specifically do like Velo related stuff. Um, and that's where kind of like I've learned a lot of the basics of it, and it's just grown from there. I think a lot of the time, once you begin to understand the basics, it's easier to like build upon that. So yeah, that's kind of like where I've learned a lot of my stuff.
Cool.
And then obviously the Discord when that was set up, I
Yeah,
joined that and done a lot there. Yeah.
yeah. I know that you're also part of the Editor X community leader program. Is there like overlap there with using Editor X and Velo and using the regular Wix editor and Velo?
Yeah, I think the thing that's great about like Wix and Editor X is they both use kind of like the same foundations. So you don't need to learn a completely new language. It's Velo. And you just once you've learned it, you can kind of like put it into both sites. But I think kind of like the power of Editor X and the responsiveness and that, and then kind of like the depth that you can get with Velo and the custom stuff that you can add when they're put together, it's just a behemoth. It's absolutely powerful. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. There's a lot of really cool stuff you can do with all of that. Yeah, I was looking through your portfolio and wanted to ask about some of the sites that you've worked on. I know you worked on this agritourism site.
Yes.
I wanted to ask kind of what that process was like, kind of what was the extent of your involvement in terms of the scope of the site, and were you using any Velo APIs there, maybe for the Wix database collections or anything like that?
Yes. Interestingly, they were the client I was talking about earlier. They were my first kind of like client of my own. I had done some white label stuff with another agency, but they were my first like big project on my own. It's up to you now. You've got complete control of the process. So we started off with an SEO audit that they had done, and I implemented that, and then they were incredibly pleased, and were like, if there's anything that you think can help us out with the site, let us know. And we kind of like sat down and discussed some of the things that they were looking for. And this site was built in-house by them. They just needed help with kind of like additional features. So this site specifically uses it's a lot of data, kind of like the Wix data stuff. So we've got kind of like cross-page filtering and searching. So on the home page, you're given options. You press search, and it takes you to kind of like another page and filters all of the locations that they have. On that page, you can then go ahead and have there's more granular filtering within that. When you head into each property, we've got it connected to Google Analytics, so we can track kind of like which product is being clicked on, the amount of times, when it was clicked on, etc. And then behind the members area, we've got a kind of like a custom form which powers the whole like content collection. So each member is able to update their own content, manage their own content, publish, and kind of like all of that stuff. So to the initial user, only like half of the project is visible because a lot of it is behind kind of like that members area. the form is maybe 50 or 60 fields long. It's pretty big, but it does the job. Yeah.
Cool. And so there's probably restrictions with the members too, about like what they have access to, what they can change, and things like that.
Yeah, definitely. That was a big learning curve for me. You know, for people who are starting off, usually like the form is just input it into the form, but then it's displaying the right information back to the user. This is the stuff that you've inputted to the form, ensuring that you can only input one entry to the form, that sort of stuff. Yeah.
And then there was like some map integration too, I was looking at. That looked pretty cool.
Yeah.
Was that all custom made with Wix, I guess?
Yeah, that's uses the Google map API stuff. I can't remember which one which of the APIs it is, but I believe we basically collect each location's address, which has a latitude and longitude property to it, and then we send that to the kind of like HTML component. It places all the pins on the map, and then we listen for when a pin's kind of like clicked. It then updates a multi-state box to show the correct information that's connected to a data set, and it filters it to the correct pin that's been selected. And then when you click on that, it takes you into the property page so that you can view that as HTML component and Google Maps.
Cool. It sounds pretty involved. I mean, especially all of this stuff kind of working together on the site, but it sounds like a success. With Black Belt Art was another site that I saw in your portfolio that it looked like it was using kind of the Wix members API as well. You had some basic login, sign up functionality. What was that process like building that site?
Yeah, so that uses kind of like Wix members. The client came to me and they were like, we're looking for a learning management system on Wix. We just want to display the courses that we've created. We want members to be able to sign up, pay for them, and then kind of have access to our complete bundle of courses. I knew that Wix, there was like the Wix courses, but it wasn't what they were looking for. It kind of like didn't fulfill their brief. So again, it was content manager kind of stuff. So hiding that, and I think the benefit of kind of like the Wix platform is not everything has to be coded. So I was able to go into the page and say, hey, this page is only available to members. So if a member heads to that URL, exactly, they're not going to see that information. They're only going to see, they're going to be presented with like, hey, you need to sign up. So it wasn't a lot, but just small things here and there within that. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. You mentioned the content manager, and I know that was something you were considering, like helping us write a blog post with. Are there other sites that you've got some experience with the content manager from?
Yeah, at the moment, I'm building a recruitment site. They currently use a platform. They weren't happy with it. They didn't have the functionality and kind of like customization that they wanted. So we're rebuilding that, and I knew about dashboard pages, but I've really kind of like dug down into that, and I'm loving them. We're basically using the content manager to house and just store information, and then we're building custom kind of like user interface for the admins of the site so that they can manage the content and decide which kind of like jobs are available on the site. The thing with the content manager is it can be overwhelming, and sometimes there's like specific instances where kind of like we have a status field and it's published, draft, in review or something like that, and simple things like typos or etc. can just cause a whole load of problems. So we've built this custom dashboard where a user on the site can submit a job, and then the admins will get an email notification to say a job's been submitted, and then they can head into their dashboard, click approved, click deny, or they can edit it before it goes onto the site. So dashboard pages are currently my new favorite thing. And with the content manager, they're great. And then I'm currently building my own on my own kind of like portfolio. Website support is something that I offer to kind of like my clients. So I built a page on my website, which I then embed in a HTML element in a client's dashboard, on their own dashboard page called website support. They can fill out that form, and then it inputs it into the content manager, and then it's displayed on my dashboard under the website kind of like support dashboard page. So a lot of the stuff that I do is kind of like content manager based. It's my favorite thing at the moment.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. I think you were mentioning this recruitment job site in one of our office hours on Discord. So it's cool to hear that it's like, progressed quite a bit.
It's getting there. It's currently on the waiting for the clients to get back to me on that one.
Yeah. And you I think you were talking before about it having some kind of email integration, right? So they get like a response if they like the applicants apply and then get automated response and stuff. What technologies were you using there?
I'm actually using the triggered emails, kind of like within Wix. I'm storing kind of like the contacts like ID kind of like in the content manager, and then using that in the triggered email to notify the correct person at the correct time that an action of some kind has been taken place. So for the admins of the site, it's the fact that somebody has submitted a job that needs to be reviewed. There's kind of like two sorts of members. We have recruiters and recruitees. So when somebody applies for a job, the person who's posted the job will get a notification saying you need to review this application and decide whether to take them further, etc. So that's what I'm doing, and he's using the triggered emails.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Like all of the functionality with these kind of major job application platforms, like 5-A is a big one, and a few others. But like it sounds like you can kind of basically recreate all of that with Wix and Velo.
Oh yeah, definitely. Sometimes it's just about having a little bit of imagination and thinking outside the box. But almost everything's completely possible. Yeah,
totally. Are there ever moments working with Velo or with Wix generally where you feel like you're brushing up against the limits of the technology, or like you kind of can't do what you want to do, and like there's a feature request you would love to make, or you're relying on a third party when you would rather it be something native within Wix or Velo?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've been looking for within Velo, which I know is not possible, is kind of like templatizing kind of like sites, or managing site ownership from kind of like the front end of a site. I would love at some point to be able to, somebody can put in their email address and be added or to a site as kind of like a contributor, something like that, which I know is not possible, but we can always dream, can't we?
Yeah, something sort of through the members API, probably, I would guess, right?
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Cool. Yeah. But that's all I really had in terms of questions. Is there anything you'd like to shout out or showcase while we're talking? Or do you like have any advice for developers just getting started with Wix or with Velo? Do you think it's the best platform to kind of learn this kind of stuff? Or what advice do you have for maybe even yourself for last year when you just were starting this business, or 2 years ago when you're just starting developing in general?
Oh yeah, I think the best advice that I'd say is just take that leap and just go for it. I see a lot of people who are like, I don't know where to start or whatever. Wix makes it incredibly easy. There's none of this like having to set up your server and like get it all connected and all of that. It's just all done for you. You simply just have to write the code. It's once you've learned the basics, it's super simple to kind of like expand on that. So yeah, just go for it. And as for shouting anything out, I haven't got anything at the moment. I am working on something, but it's not quite ready to have anything shouted out yet. But yeah.
Yeah, cool. Well, your portfolio site looks great. I would definitely recommend everyone check that out. It's noahlovell.design. But thanks for taking the time to chat with me. It's been a lot of fun.
Awesome.